Enterprise's How to Start a Tech Business. We'll be joined with Sam and Miles this evening. I'm Howard. I'm the enterprise consultant here within the team. So this evening, what we're going to be doing is asking our entrepreneurs some questions and seeing how they started their journeys and where they're up to at the moment. So I'll say hello to them in a moment, but just for you guys to get used to the format this evening, feel free to ask questions in the group. Carolyn and I will be on, and Genya as well, to help and answer any of those questions. We will come back to that. Feel free to ask at any time. But yeah, so I will start this evening by saying welcome, Sam and Miles. And yeah, Miles, if you'd like to introduce yourself to start with.
Sure, yeah. So hi, I'm Miles, and I'm the founder of a company called Directly Sourced, and we're one of the UK's first property platforms specifically for property investment. And I've started this over the last sort of year, probably January this year, really started getting things going while in my final year. So I'm studying biomedical engineering at Aston University as well. So trying to manage the business while being at uni is difficult, and I'd be happy to share some stuff I'm doing to try and manage with that. But yeah, it's absolute carnage. But yeah, so essentially a property investment platform to connect estate agents with verified property investors across the UK. So that's what we've done, a bit like Rightmove, but for property investment.
Perfect. Right. Okay. Thank you, Miles. And Sam, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Of course. My name is Sam Beni, actually, with my co-founder who's on the call as well, Dmitrijs. We have co-founded Desks.app, Desk Technologies. So that was actually the whole idea came out of one of our modules in last year when we actually got graduated this year from University of Aston. But from one of the modules that we had to come up with an idea and build up the idea, and we thought that actually the idea is a great idea to keep on going and actually build up a business. So what we do at Desks.app is basically we came up with the idea of before the pandemic happened, there was just many people couldn't actually flexible working place for a certain period of time, right? So for example, for a few hours in different cities. If you're working from different places, you would like to actually look for a place close to you. And we wanted to build a platform that actually for anyone to look for a affordable space for hire, for example, for meeting rooms or desks around them anytime, anywhere they would like to. So it is very similar to Airbnb, but for desks on an hourly basis.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Sam and Miles. Very different. We have some conflicting things going on at the moment with the fantastic C word, which is currently making business very interesting this year. But Sam, you mentioned then how you came up with your business. But Miles, biomedical engineering, very different in regards than property investment. How have you got to where you are now then? Because that is a bit of a side step, and also on a platform as well is very different. So what's taking you down the path?
Yeah, so I get this a lot. Anyone I speak to pretty much asks the same question, actually. So yeah, it sort of came about.
Sorry, I'm boring on that one.
What's that, sorry?
Sorry, I'm boring asking the same.
No, all good. No, it's a fair enough question. So yeah, obviously very, very different medical and property space, completely different places. So yeah, it came about sort of last year. I've always sort of been interested in property, spending too much time on Rightmove when I probably should be revising. Yeah, always been interested in property, and then sort of went of ways of trying to get involved the last year. So I was in my second year, and I went to a property course in Birmingham actually. And it was there I sort of tried to get involved, and it occurred to me there's a real lack of innovation beyond sort of Rightmove and Zoopla. In terms of property portals, it hasn't really progressed beyond that. Okay, they're always innovating, adding new features and stuff, but something specifically for property investment just didn't exist at that point. And you look at other spaces like the finance tech space, where you've got eToro, Trading 212, you've got these massive platforms that are dominated in that space. There wasn't really anything doing that for property investment. And it was also the same case on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's where a lot of investors, property investors and estate agents are kind of doing business. And I just kind of realized that there should be some sort of a better way of doing business in this way and connecting the two parties together. And another thing as well was on Rightmove, I was seeing every single day investment opportunities being listed on Rightmove, but I don't know the actual statistic. I probably should. The percentage of residential and the people like families looking for properties on Rightmove is going to be significantly more than investors. And obviously there are investors on Rightmove and there always will be, but why spend thousands advertising to a massive broad audience when you could advertise to such a more specific audience in a cheaper way? So that's sort of how I came about the idea. It wasn't me trying to I've always wanted my own business, but it wasn't me going out looking for ideas. The opportunity was sort of there, and I was like, right, let's try and do something, and then went and got market validation, which I'll go into later. And that's how I kind of went about it. So it saw the opportunity and then built the business around the opportunity.
Okay, brilliant. And I think just going to link in with a question that's just come in now towards Sam. I know this isn't your first venture, but both of you have kind of gone for that very much tech angle platform. Why was that driving you? Why was it focusing? And there, how have you developed into a business, but then also with the tech skills which are needed? Kind of a two-point question there: the business and how that formulated, and then how and why a platform and the tech that's needed, and the knowledge and skills which are needed to develop it in that way. So Sam, sorry.
Sure. Well, I would say it's definitely about if you want to start a company. I would say that it's very important to look for a big of a problem to solve, and you actually will put yourself into the customer shoes and say like, yeah, I will be one of the customers to use this, right? So you cannot build a business and build a product or service you wouldn't want to use, right? So then it would defeat the whole purpose. So as I mentioned, the idea actually started before, and when we started to working on it as part of our university degree. Before, when I was working in London, I was working from Microsoft Office, and there was an event, and I wasn't aware of. I left the premises, went to a coffee shop, right? So work from there. I had to still work for a few more hours, and again, after half an hour, the staff were looking at me, and I was uncomfortable. I had to take on calls, and I started looking for a affordable space around me, right, in central London. I said definitely there is a place that I can book for 2 hours. To my surprise, there was none. I could just get of course office space for a day, which was really expensive, and so yeah, there's a huge gap, right? So I said okay, so I would love to use a service like this. So let's go and validate it in the market. And we started, going and researching and asking other people, as part of what we've done with Dmitry. And we validated it through the market research, and we understood actually many entrepreneurs and even many of the corporate workers that would love to utilize the service for a short period of time. And so it's definitely about you would like to go and tackle an issue that you would like to be seeing solved, right? Because if you actually start a tech business or start any sort of business, it's like you're putting your soul and your energy into it, and you want it to grow, right? So I mean, if you don't want, the whole entrepreneurship is not about actually starting a business for the sake of starting a business. It's about, okay, so I found a problem, came up with this idea. Let's go validate it. Understand we can actually utilize the resources we have to be able to actually attack this idea and then solve it in a way that we can go to market, right? So it's all about if you found the right idea and you've got the right resources to go and solve it.
So with that, and then you came about the idea, is then you've kind of validated it. So was that from the validation you took the steering towards it being an online platform, and then
Yes,
with that, do you have the skills in house, or have you looked at outsourcing? How have you come about that? So
that's right. So in terms of the technical, really difficult, right? So for example, if you're an individual who are actually they've got the technical resources or understanding internally. So for example, one of the students, if they're listening, they're doing computer science, maybe they have the background to actually build a website from code from scratch themselves, right? Great. But many people don't, right? So okay, so how can you go and look for a co-founder perhaps in that stage to be able to help you? So from our point of view, just like when we started this with Dmitry, we have some bit a bit of technical expertise in house between both of us, but we are not too technical in case, like, we're not building the whole platform from scratch on cloud, going through all the details. So we started looking for what are the ways that we can actually onboard another person, perhaps as our co-founder, who's more technical as a CTO, right? So that was one of the ways. And we understood, okay, so we cannot afford it, right? So they're expecting quite a lot of money for a CTO. Okay, so what we can do? We understood, okay, so let's actually improvise and build up the MVP, which is called, it stands for minimum viable product. It is like, a bare bone version of your idea to go to market and prove it. And from there, then we can actually expand and grow. So we decided to actually build the MVP internally between Dmitry and myself to be able to go to market. And from there, then we can actually like get investment to be able to onboard more technical individuals to be able to maintain and grow.
Oh, fantastic. So really try and get that balance, noticing, seeing the skills that you have within the team and where it can take you, and kind of working at that MVP level. That's really good. Miles, how have you found it with technical skills yourself, being tech focused, or is it more that you're kind of trying to find that balance as well?
Yeah, so I'm in a slightly different position. Believe it or not, although I do an engineering degree, I am useless with tech. I have not got the first clue about web development, app development. Yeah, I'm clueless. So I realized that quite early on with the idea. So I looked at sort of website builders and stuff like that. The first sort of version we made, which I knew wasn't going to be a proper product, was made on Wix actually. And that was just purely just to sort of get it onto paper, get it visually and show people what they think essentially. So made it on Wix. Again, reiterate, knew it wasn't going to be used as an actual product. It was just purely to visualize it, and it helps. Right, I drew it out on paper and stuff, but actually seeing it on a screen is really, really useful. Scrapped that after about a week, realized obviously it's not very good. And then I went and made it on Shopify, because essentially with what we do at Directly Sourced is essentially like I say, Rightmove, so people can list properties to investors. So I treated the properties as products. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with Shopify. Probably a lot of you are. It's basically a marketplace website where you can build and sell products. So yeah, we treated the properties like products. So my plan was, again, hasn't worked out, was to list properties as products on the site. So try building it on Shopify, and then realize pretty early on, again, if you've got quite a complex product, the idea might be really simple, but a lot of the time, again, because I'm completely non-technical, had no idea, a lot of the time the back end is a complete mess. So I didn't realize how complicated just putting an image on a computer was, and then displaying it to loads of people and getting people to upload and save and whatever is complicated. So I realized Shopify didn't have enough add-ons and flexibility to allow me to do that. And then thankfully, really thankfully, my girlfriend, one of her sister's friends, so sort of a family friend kind of thing, is a web developer. And we've struck up a kind of deal. So he's won't go into too many details because it's changing at the moment, to be fair. Is a commission kind of thing. So he's getting X amount of what we make. So I was really lucky I didn't have to pay anything up front to have the site built, which again, I've kind of got an unfair advantage in that sense. And I'm obviously really grateful. But I think identifying early on as an entrepreneur, the stuff you're not good at, and I realised although I've got a tech business, I'm useless at tech. So I knew pretty early on I was going to need help, and obviously didn't have the finance in place to do that. So had to sort of get a bit creative and ask around, and thankfully managed to find someone to build it for me. So that's where we're at now. We've got a working site, and it's a really good looking site. I'm really happy with it. Obviously stuff will be added and taken out, but the site's really, really good, and it has all the stuff we need right now. But yeah, so someone else made it for me, essentially, to be completely honest. However,
I can see Sam nodding along, going, "Oh, I would have loved to have had that in that place straight away." So from you both, it's sounding like you found the limits of your kind of expertise. Miles jumping in and trying some different things and understanding and starting to get to grips with that tech, but then Sam and Dmitry is understanding that, you know what, we've got some skills in-house, we can build it to a point. And now it sounds like you're both starting to kind of wrestle and understand that next stage of, I know the question is, how easy is it to find people in tech? It sounds like we've got one that's looking, Sam and Dmitry are still trying to find that person that's the right fit, because of course being co-founders, bringing someone else on is interesting. But How are you finding it that you've kind of aiming for a glass ceiling that you know will come one day and you can see through it, but you're going to need someone to come join you at that stage? And how does that feel, especially for yourself, Sam, of you know where you're working to, but to get there and then past it, you'll need someone else. How's that finding as a tech, as a business?
Well, well, can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, can hear you. Just a bit crackly, but don't worry.
Okay, let me just bring it closer. Extremely hard, especially if you don't have enough financial resources, right? So if you have like initial investment, or you would like to bootstrap everything, especially if you want to build a platform, it's extremely hard. Well, certainly, given the position, we just need to take on the best decision that we can at our stage, right? And at this stage, the best decision we could was just, okay, so let's utilize all the resources to the maximum level of our expertise. And even if you don't have the expertise in house, right, let's go and learn it. So we push ourselves like even further. So like, okay, so first the idea was like, okay, let's build up the app, try it out with full features. We understood, okay, we don't have the expertise in house. Okay, so what shall we learn? Let's go and learn how to put stuff. Let's go and learn how to actually completely design application in terms of like the user interface, user experience. And okay, so now we don't have the expertise to go and code it. All right, so Dimitri, can you go and learn how to code, right? Which actually Dimitri can now explain. I give it to Dimitri so you can actually answer the rest of the question.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just gonna kind of reiterate like what Sam said before, is that yeah, before we're thinking to start straight away with the application. We researched UI, UX, and we made actually all the wireframe sort of prototype. But yeah, then after speaking with several coders, yeah, we realized they're kind of out of our price range, and people who already have established jobs, I mean, they might like the idea, but they're not exactly willing to jump on board straight away and to lose out on their salary. So yeah, it can be really challenging in the beginning. And yeah, as Sam mentioned before, myself, I'm trying to learn how to make applications, but yeah, it takes quite a lot of time and preparation. So yeah, and we decided to pivot a bit, and we are building a website on WordPress using something like Shopify, basically WooCommerce.
Yeah, so it's interesting now hearing the development of finding those abilities in tech. And Miles, I think it's really interesting. I think some of the terms we're throwing around UX and wireframe and MVP. I think just to break that down more, it sounds like you went through every like stage of like product development of finding. How do you find that process? So of course, on paper, a bit of a wireframe, and then how have you found that journey?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm quite a visual person. So I find I have loads of ideas in my head, but until it's out on paper and I can visually see it in front of me, it's not even worth thinking about. So yeah, I obviously, like I said, I drew it down, and I was talking to one of my mates, Christian. I think he's on here as well. We were sort of talking about if we could go back and redo, because he's doing another business as well, but if we could go back and think about how we would have done it to start with, my thing would be, if you haven't got tech skills, I noticed someone here has asked a question about, do you have the business or tech skills first? My advice for that would be to have the idea and then create a landing page kind of thing. And anyone could, even I could do that, and I'm useless. Like, you literally just drag and drop stuff on a site and put the information out there. And you don't even need to have a product to show people. I think being able to sell the vision is so much more important. And if you're genuinely solving a problem, people will back that idea. And you might even find people who want to come and work for you, maybe even free. But I think by having the actual product in front of, and by having a landing page to show people, I think that can sometimes be more beneficial, because obviously, especially if you're someone like me who's not very good at tech, you're going to be restricted by your own capabilities. And talking about that glass ceiling kind of thing, you can see it coming. You realize the stuff you've got now, you're probably never going to use. It's probably going to get rebuilt by someone else. And I think being able to identify that early on is key as well. But yeah, my if I could go back and instead of creating all these different sites on Wix and Shopify, my thing would have been to create a landing page straight off the bat before it even worked out how I was going to build this product. Which it'll probably cost you like £5 to do on like WordPress or something, or Wix. Like, it won't be a lot. Get a landing page out there and put it in front of your ideal market. So obviously, mine being investors, what I would have done is create a landing page and then just put it in front of a load of investors, because it's all well and good having a product, but until you've validated that, which you can do with a landing page without a product, until you validated that, there's no point, in my opinion, spending loads of time and effort, money, getting investors, loads of stuff before you've validated it. And you could do that with a landing page. And the exciting thing about the landing page, you could be in a position where you've built up an email list of, let's say, 10,000 people, right? If it's a really good product, you've built up a list of 10,000 people without even having a product. And then with that, from an investor's point of view, I can imagine, not that I've had any investment, but I guess from an investor's point of view, they can see there's obviously a demand for it. It's kind of a lot less risk for them. Even if there's no product, it's a lot less risk for them to invest in something where they can already see that's been validated without even having a product. So I think if I was to go back and give anyone any advice, it would be, first thing you need to do is create a landing page. By all means, try and make demos and stuff on other sites or whatever, or even on PowerPoint, design what you want it to look like. But I think unless you are Steve Jobs or someone and you know how to build websites, I don't know, or like the other guys, the desk guys who actually know what they're doing, I would not even bother, because the stuff you're going to come out with is not even going to be good enough to validate the idea. You're going to end up having an app which doesn't even work, and it's going to be impossible to get validation, whereas you could do that in 20 minutes by making a landing page. So that'd be my kind of advice on how to go about actually starting it and then getting the tech team and bringing in that expertise. So yeah.
So that's really interesting. And Sam, I'm going to come to you in a moment about validating an idea. But Miles, you're not thinking, looking back over your time, that going through those steps taught you something in regard to wireframe on paper, then seeing it fail on Wix, and then go on Shopify? Do you think was there no other learnings there that you think, actually, if I just jumped straight to a landing page, I might have missed?
Yeah, so I think it has been a good experience, sort of spending silly amount of time making a product which is rubbish. I think it has actually been quite beneficial, because it has given you that sort of, if you're not from a technical background, which I'm not, or even if you're not doing an engineering degree, whatever you're doing, being able to build it and do it yourself, it does give you a skill set where, say, if you were to end up working with a tech team or having your own tech team in-house or whatever, or even outsourcing, it allows you to communicate a bit better with what you want. Because obviously, even with the developer I've got now, like yesterday, I was suggesting a function for the site, which I thought would be like a 20-minute job. Apparently that takes 2 weeks. Again, it shows the complete incompetence I am when it comes to this sort of stuff. But I think, yeah, it is a good experience kind of building it yourself. And it does make you think in that sort of tech way of how does stuff work, and the sort of, I don't even know how to describe, the sort of flow charts and how stuff interacts with each other. It does make you think by building it yourself. But yeah, I wouldn't discourage anyone from doing it. I think it's good, but identify early on that this probably is not going to be the product, and don't get disheartened when someone comes in and goes, your product's rubbish. It's probably going to happen, unless you've got a proper team from day one. The product you've got now is not going to really be put in front of that many people, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
I think that's a really important point there, of just kind of bedding down that those first few won't be the final product, and I think that's invaluable. Don't get disheartened. But so Sam, now saying about not getting disheartened and validating, that's an emotional roller coaster right in its own right. How have you found validating? Like I say, you've done a few other businesses before, but now with Desks, we won't mention it too much. Of course, we've got something happening where going about and possibly renting a desk in a space is a bit harder. So how have you gone around validating an idea right now and looking at providing a service?
Certainly. I mean, given the current due to the pandemic, well, yeah, it has completely changed everyone. The movement to digital businesses, working from home and else, right? But through our research, right, given our initial research we've done, we thought, okay, so who are our target markets? So we've done research, we understood, okay, so it's like 52% male, 48% female, around 50%, 50% actually like are entrepreneurs, and the 50 other percent is like, for a company, and the average age around like, is 32. But now it's completely changed, right? Before we thought, okay, so we are like a niche, we are a niche player. We're going for certain people who are just like traveling, or they're looking for space for a short period of time. But now actually we see the market as of like, way bigger than it was before. Because yes, currently it is very bad because of the pandemic. But given after every downhill, there's an uphill. And when everybody wants to go back to work, there are many companies, especially the tech companies, they don't have any other offices, right? So for example, like Twitter, Facebook, they already said they closed off all of their offices, right? So we see a drop in the productivity per worker, a massive drop, because many people, especially in our age range, they hate working from home. Like for example, myself, I just have a bed, right? But I don't have a desk in my room in central London, so I need to go work from somewhere. And for that reason, actually, we see the market way bigger than what it was before the pandemic. We just need to build up the platform, grow within during the pandemic, keep on going until the opportunity rises for after the vaccination. Whatever happens in the future, we don't know. When the uphill comes, then we believe that we have a way bigger of a market than what it was before the pandemic, because of the whole change that the revolution of working from home has brought.
Brilliant. And so that's how you're finding it, and that information, that's interesting to see. Actually, it's strengthened your offering going forward, and that's exciting to see. On the back end of this, there could even be further developments. And Miles, what about yourself validating? You went through it, you were starting it kind of before the pandemic, and now you've hit it. So of course, a lot of property investment can be on office spaces and everything like that. So has there been any impact for you, and has that changed your validation at all?
Yeah, so just talking about a bit how I validated and stuff, going back to sort of building the product. Another big issue with building a product before you validate it, and it's so easy to do because I did it as well, is because you get really excited. You've got this idea, you're like, this idea is going to change the world. The problem with that is you end up building a product, unless you validate and spoke to loads of people who are your ideal people and not the wrong people. You're going to build a product based on assumptions, and that's kind of what I did. I ended up having a product with all these features and all this stuff that I thought was sick. However, the people who are actually going to be using it were just like, no, what's the point of that? So that's another problem with if you end up building a product properly and getting loads of funding and getting all these people involved. The problem with that is you'll end up building the product based around things you think are good, whereas as annoying as it is as someone running the business and coming up with the ideas, you really do have to listen to the people who are using your product or are going to use your product, because you don't want to be in a position where you've made a complete product, spent thousands of pounds, got developers in, whoever, and then you've got a product that's rubbish, but you think it's great. So that's a big issue. But how I went about validating it then is so obviously a bit hypocritical of me, but I did make like a demo version, like I said, on Wix. And then I went and spoke to loads of people. Thankfully, property investment groups are massive on Facebook. So there's loads of Facebook groups. That's sort of where the idea came from, is that it was a rubbish place to do business, is Facebook. So I kind of saw that, and I joined loads of these groups and sort of put polls in, and we're like, oh, if I was to make this product, or I think I maybe had a screenshot of the Wix site in there, and people are like, oh yeah, this is sick. But that's all well and good, but I need to sort of nail down on what things they're struggling with to then build the product based on that. So then I was just asking people every day, like, oh, what stuff do you struggle with as an estate agent? Is it actually finding investors? Is it because Rightmove's so expensive? Is it really? I know you always hear about pain points and stuff like this, and it's thrown around a lot, but it is so important. You need to really dig down and find out what your ideal, because the platform, I guess we've both got, and Desk as well, is a sort of marketplace platform where you've got suppliers with the desks and consumers, investors for me, and then work people for Sam and Dmitrijs. But you've got to think about what problems both of them are experiencing. So not just from one end, because I see it quite a lot. And I was a bit like this when I first started Directly Sourced as well. I was thinking completely from one end of the marketplace and not both ends. So I made a product that was sick for investors and amazing for investors, but wasn't that good for estate agents and sourcing agents and developers, whoever advertises on it. So I think thinking about both, and when you come to validating your product, if it's a marketplace, which a lot of the time in tech it is, and you've got suppliers and consumers, think about really what both of their pain points are. Because if that shift ends up being it's more of a solution for one end than it is for the other, it will eventually just end up extrapolating. You'll end up with a business which is 90%, 99% good for consumers, but 1% good for us, and then it will just all fall apart. So you really got to think about what both ends, what's in it for them, and what will they get out. And I think that's another thing. This is sort of the first of a proper business I've had. It's something I looked over quite quickly. Is people don't really care about your product. They care about what they get out of it and what they can bring out of your business and how it's going to help them. Plastering all over Facebook ads and whatever, going, oh, we've got this feature, we've got inbuilt messaging and da-da-da. No one really cares. They need to really spell out for them, how is this product going to help them? And I think that comes with validation, and you can work out when you validate the product what people want, and then you can relay that through your marketing, which is really important to do as well.
That's really interesting. I think then coming on to that kind of marketing, with validation, of course, you guys are just starting to get there. I know, Miles, you're starting to get a bit of traction, getting out in some publications and stuff. And then coming on to marketing, you've gone out and spoke, you mentioned around Facebook and seeing those groups, but how have you gone out and without these big budgets that say Nike and other ones have when they want to go validate a new product, how have you been and gone around it with smaller budgets, found those people to talk to and advertise and start to really build up a bit of like initial traction and validate the idea? And yeah, over to you, Sam.
In terms of a couple of ideas, right? Again, it's not really related to desks, but I agree with Miles, right? So if you, for example, build a very simple website, just in terms of like they call it A/B testing, right? So if you like create 2 different versions, it's not that hard actually. I mean, through YouTube, you can YouTube and learn how to do it within Wix or WordPress or else within it, right? So you can actually A/B test something, some feature or some idea, and see like whoever is coming to your website, or even like if you're utilizing social media, perhaps like on Instagram or Facebook or elsewhere, to understand whether like people are interested, they click on it. It might never work, right? But then you can understand how many people hit on it, right? They understand there are people like interested in this idea, so you can actually say like, okay, so I can take on these numbers, right? So these like how many people have clicked on this, right, comparing to how many people have seen it, as an example to say like, yeah, this is a good validation on my idea, whatever that idea is, right? So I think early on, it's very important to understand this. And second is like, again, through people around you, right? So people around you, if you know anyone who's as an expert in this area, go ask for it. Like if they can actually find a mentor to help you, like whoever actually has started a tech business, perhaps previously a bit older, perhaps like they've been successful, go and ask if they can mentor you, like give you advice you needed. That would really, especially when you just come out of university or you're starting a business right in the university, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, so that's interesting for trying to find that balance and then really going after it. And I think, Miles, you've already mentioned that you're re-involved in the community and kind of getting that. So that's good to see that. And I think the next question that we're going for is, now being tech companies and you're looking, maybe not having technical abilities, do you go out to other companies, and is that how you host your servers, or where are you finding the balancing act now of having what you have in-house compared to what you have out, especially at this stage in your journey, and what is the potential moving forward? I think, Miles, you've really boxed yourself into a corner now saying I'm not a tech person. So how are you finding that of saying I've now got to balance this from the business side, what gets outsourced and what do I have in-house? So how are you finding that, and what are you actually doing of rent servers or cloud-based?
Yeah, so again, going to sound like a bit of an idiot here. I'm not entirely sure how it all works. However, my understanding is we have some sort of cloud-based server, but sort of without being too, that's all I can literally say on a technical point of view. I'm sure Sam will be able to help, but without, steering them slightly away from that, but still within it, is when you, obviously with a tech business, these kind of things, especially if it's like a marketplace thing, you've got to think ahead. You might end up, I know it's hard to say at such an early stage, but you might be in a position where you're renting a server, and if it's not easy to upgrade to have a server which can handle double the amount of people you have right now, you do have to think about that, else you could really mess your business up. So you do have to kind of think especially within tech, I think, you do have to think a couple of steps ahead of what do you think you'll need in a year's time? What do you think you'll need in 2 years' time, or even 2 weeks or 2 months. Because for me, especially because it's an investor kind of thing, and we've got a lot on one end. Sellers, I can control how many are on the site, but investors, if a publication went out and it got seen by a few thousand people, they could all suddenly come at once, and my service might not be able to handle that. So I think being able to, if you don't understand like me, make sure you know someone that does understand that kind of thing and identify that early on. You don't want to be in a position like me where you're in a box, and if I didn't have my developer who's helping me and feeding back this information on how many users we can handle on the site and stuff, would get to a point where the site just crashes, and then you lose your credibility and trust. So you do need to think a couple of steps ahead. But I think with all the tech, like with cloud and stuff like that, I think there's affordable ways of doing it now. It's not as expensive as people think, where you've got to go out and buy a 10 grand server and then put it in your garage with a load of fans around it. It's not. It's all in the cloud now, I guess, isn't it? So there is affordable ways of doing it, within reason, obviously. But yeah, you do need to think ahead. But when you think ahead, hopefully you'll be making money or you'll have investments, so it shouldn't be a problem. But initially, I don't think it's something you need to worry about too much, unless you're planning on doing a massive marketing campaign somehow and you get featured in Forbes or something. I don't think you probably need to worry too much about your servers not being able to handle your users. And that's another thing actually as well, talking about like security and stuff. Sorry, I'm rambling here. But obviously with servers and whatever, again, don't know too much, but you've got to think about security. Because if you, especially with me, we've got investors and they're submitting documents, proof of funds, names, email addresses, stuff like that, ID going forward. You got to think about GDPR, and if someone hacks into your site, what you're going to do. So definitely get yourself clued up if you're going to be doing stuff where you're going to be handling like sensitive information, card details and stuff like that. Think about how you're going to store that securely, and make sure you're clued up on like GDPR and ICOs kind of stuff. That's something to definitely, if you don't understand it, because I don't, read about it and then work it out.
I think that leads on brilliant, especially the question that just got answered, asked in the chat there, of kind of around the product. It sounds like you're really getting the blend here of finding that balance with your co-founder, of they know the full technical abilities, but with your business knowledge, you are doing those steps ahead of highlighting, you know what, this server could work, but actually a few steps down the line, this is where we need to go. And I think Sam and Dmitry, while you're both on and co-founder, I think the questions, I know, Sam, don't be offended, I know Dmitry's more of the tech guy. How are you finding it, Dmitry, with getting the balance of the security, especially with GDPR, and looking after all those elements which kind of sit more within your role, and how, while still learning all the other elements, how are you finding that balance?
Yeah, just 1 second. Regarding security concerns, yeah, we're still figuring out all the GDPR stuff and trying to stay compliant. I mean, if Sam, if you can add anything to that.
Yes, sure. I mean, in terms of like has mentioned, like you should go on, and actually there's a free course on ICO to be ICO certified. You get a certificate, how to handle data, how to actually like be compliant in terms of the GDPR, how to like keep up this information. But I would suggest to anyone who's actually building a platform or a website, push on all of this compliance to a third party. So if you want to, for example, build up your own database for email handling, why would you do it yourself, right? Just sign up to a third party who actually would handle this the database for your emails, full service, because they have a bigger team, bigger actually like bigger cost to actually be compliant with all the GDPR, everything else like within like email handling or else, right? For that third party. But if it's for your own website, again, what that's for our service, this is something that we are going currently with Dmitry, is like to be compliant to privacy policies and the legal stuff. But these are again the legal side. But if you look at the security is saying like suddenly your website get hacked or else, right? So this is about again a more technical side. As if you're an individual who building these services, you need to take into account, right, how much knowledge you have to be able to build up these, right? And again, if you actually give the same advice, if you can push off all of these services to a third party, which is actually a good company that for example, if you want to utilize, as Miles said, like cloud services, right? So, for example, if you build up your services on the AWS or Azure or GCP, then they have the security in place on their servers to be able to, be kind of like hack proof. Otherwise, if you're building very a website that like can't hack suddenly, right? So it's kind of like hack proof, right? Because governments use these servers and they have no issues, right? That's the whole idea of like utilizing third-party servers to be able to run it. You don't need to again go and buy expensive servers assets on. But for ourselves at the moment, we are utilizing because of the agreement we've got the third party. There's a company, a fintech company that's on advising, and we've got an agreement with that company to utilize their dedicated servers to host our services, our application, our websites, and utilize the space there until we are in a space that we are taking the business really lean, right? So we want to bring down all the costs until we are in a position to be able to utilize our services. We are not there yet.
No, it's brilliant. I think that's really interesting to hear how you're working it. I think that is a really key point as well. If you are outsourcing, a lot of them now are GDPR compliant. It's you to find out if they do have that, but actually there's that security within them. A really interesting question now. Kind of, Miles, I know you were saying about that look and where you're currently at the moment with the process, but getting someone on board that has that level of technical ability without kind of the funds or investment, how are those conversations going? Not like to really pry and go too deep dive, but what are the conversations looking like, and how are you finding that balance of keeping someone interested that you maybe not able to pay at this stage, or how have you found that kind of journey at the moment, and what are you doing?
Yeah, so obviously going back to what I was saying earlier, being able to identify areas you're not good at quick is pretty key. So again, I realized it wasn't technical, so I'll go into how I got the developer. But what I'm doing at the moment is obviously when you're starting out, I'm the only person other than a developer. I am single co-founder, like I'm the only founder and CEO, and every other job involved in the business except from a technical point of view. So I've realized I ain't got enough time to build a good social media presence and stuff. So people obviously at the moment, especially during the current climate, are looking for experience. If they can't get jobs because the jobs are requiring 5 years of experience and stuff like that, people are open to unpaid work in return for work experience essentially. So we've got a couple of, I put a thing on LinkedIn the other day, completely free to post a job advert, and I've had like 40 applicants for a social media job to just manage all the Instagram, Facebook pages, completely free. But a lot of them are like and they're targeted towards like university students looking for experience. So there is ways about it, but that's not in a disrespectful way. That's not a technical thing. You need to be very skilled at social media, but a technical thing is slightly better paying normally. So chances are people aren't going to do it for free. So the conversation with my developer, who's called Michael, sort of came about, obviously family and friend, which helped a lot. But again, it's a risk for him because he's had no upfront payment, because a lot of developers, they require like a few grand to develop a product. But I think ways of doing it is getting them on board with the vision and explaining to them, look, this is the market, and really kind of selling it like an investment pitch essentially. If you're not going to be paying someone, be like, look, we can work out a deal and sign contracts and stuff like that. So he's getting a percentage of our profit each month, which will change obviously depending on, it's quite low right now, but obviously when we start making more, hopefully that'll probably have to go down. But yeah, having those conversations with people, just sort of sell the vision. And if your idea is sick, there's all this whole like thing about having a good culture in your company and stuff like that. Obviously I've not got no one else at the moment in person anyway, but yeah, sharing the vision with them and getting them on board, because the last thing you want, especially if someone's unpaid, they're just going to quit if they hate your product or they hate what you're doing. They're just like, no, you can't do it for money in this sense. So you have to have someone or people who share the same vision as you and share the same sort of goals as you to, in my case, create the platform for property investment is my goal. So getting people on board who share that same vision and that same passion is really important. And often you can get there's a lot of leverage with that. And I think especially if you're starting a business right now, there's a lot more leverage in unpaid work, because people, again, are looking for experience. And if you can find the right people who are, you'd be surprised. I'm surprised how many applicants have got to this social media thing, but you kind of work out who's going to be most interested. You look at the skills they've had before. Have they been involved with property? We had someone apply to the job who was head of marketing for Purple Bricks, which is like massive, and they applied to my job. Probably won't take them on. I don't think they've realised it's unpaid, but if you're providing you're clear about that and transparent, I think you'll be surprised the results you get. And that answering that question, someone just asked, yeah, percentages and stuff is a difficult one. I'm going to be completely upfront here and tell you how much he's getting. We're not making any money right now. He's getting 25% of the profit. And that wasn't my suggestion. It was initially 15%, but obviously because it's taken longer to generate income because we've made it free while we build up our user base and stuff, he upped the fee so he gets his money back quicker, essentially. So it's a difficult one, but try and roughly work out what you think you'll be making in this time of the year. And at the moment, that's sort of my only overhead. So really, I could afford to spend 99% of my money on market development, and then I'd still be making 1% profit. That is my only overhead other than marketing and stuff like that, which I don't really have at the moment. So yeah, it's a difficult one, percentages and stuff like that. Though I don't know if Sam will be able to answer a bit better, but yeah, percentages, obviously you've got a co-founder and stuff, so presumably 50-50, but when you're by yourself and you're bringing on people, yeah, from, again, I don't even know I'm doing a business one. I'm not techie, I'm not to see, but yeah, working out all the different businessy stuff and working out what percentages people should get shareholding and stuff like that, it comes with time. And it's better when you've got revenue because you can kind of work out what you can afford to lose and what you can afford to give away. But when you're by myself, like someone the other day at a meeting wanted to 50-50 with me and put a load of money in, but I was just like, I don't know what it's worth yet. I can't put a value on what 25% or 50% of my business. It's worth nothing right now, but it might be worth $1 million in a year. So I don't know how. Yeah, it's a difficult one, percentages. But just make sure if you do any deals or contracts with people, make sure it's got a break clause in it. So like that, you review it in like 6 months' time or a year's time. Don't shoot yourself in the foot and end up giving away 25% of your business from day one, and then that might be worth a lot of money, and you've kind of screwed yourself over there. So yeah, difficult one to answer, and it comes to time, I think.
Definitely. I think it's really interesting. I'm just going to draw back a bit just to pass over to Sam. Is Miles was talking very much there to start with about that passion and the culture you're developing. And like I say, you've got two at the moment, you're kind of going out. But going back to another question earlier is I know you guys are trying to get to an MVP stage and then go out to potentially investors. How are you finding it with initial conversations about getting the balance of your passion, but also the validation, and then also going out to investors and listening to what they want to hear? How are you finding that of selling the vision while you're still getting towards the MVP stage and before any real traction has started to be started? How are you finding that journey, especially then potentially going to investors as well?
Yeah, I mean, to answer the question correctly, I mean, given my experience beforehand, right, in multiple other businesses, some of them I have co-founded, some other just worked. I was involved with fundraising or going to investors, venture capitalists or angel investors. So I have a rough idea of how to deal with this community. But overall, given the current stage of the business, we are in MVP stage, and investors, whether they are angel or VC or any other kind, they would love to see some numbers, to see revenue coming in. And at the current stage where we are pre-revenue business, and would like to see traction and other information that would actually give a rough idea as what is the valuation of the business. And we are not there yet. So given the current stage, the goal is to actually finish off the MVP to a stage that we can go to market, showcase that in a test bit, that we can actually create this traction, and with these numbers, be able to go to the circle of the investors and ask for money, essentially, going for raising funds. And but yeah, dealing with investors on its own, it requires research, detailed research, and happily, right, there is actually there are a lot of resources online that you can go and tap into, and they actually go through what exactly how you should take on your first meeting with the investor, whether what's the difference between VC or angel, this, that, and there are many resources. I would say Google is your best friend. Google it and you will find out the answers, certainly.
No, definitely. I think, and Miles, you're just going through that stage as well. Aren't you starting to spit? Are you looking at taking investors on? Or are you saying you had a conversation? Are you starting to go in, enter that world, and have those conversations?
So I think you'd be a bit disillusioned to think tech businesses don't cost money. They do cost a lot, but I think you can get to a point, especially with the tools available now. And every day there's new platforms that are coming out. A really good one, I've not used it, but I've heard good things about it. It's called Bubble, and you can create some mad stuff. There's full-on apps on the app. You can put apps in the App Store for free, essentially. Like, it's unbelievable. And I think with all the stuff coming out now, where you can build products on and stuff like that, you can build a business, a tech business especially, for quite cheap. But I think having spoken to a couple of like investors and stuff now, not in a formal way of, oh, we're looking for this, just a very general conversation. What they look for in the nicest possible way, they don't really care about your business that much. They care about the money coming in and the money coming out. And unless they can see a way of doing that and what's going to happen in the middle of that between the money coming in and the money coming out, what you're going to do to make their money come out more, they're not going to really care, to be honest. And I think as well, especially a lot of us are like uni students and stuff. Sam obviously graduated, but we're still all quite young. We've not, unless one of us has secretly started Uber or something, there's not going to be that much validation behind you as to what you can really achieve. And it's all well and good chatting absolute rubbish, like I do quite well, but unless you can really have proof of, oh, I can do this, I'm really good at this, they're not going to really care. And yeah, so we are, to answer your actual question about rambling now. Yeah, we are potentially looking at getting investment, but I think we're at the point now where when we do start charging for the platform, we'll hopefully have a big enough user base to pretty much be quite self-sufficient, and that will probably give us. Obviously, tech businesses can be quite money draining, like I say, but they also can be quite profitable as well. And I think a lot of the time, if you set it up in the right way, and you do, obviously it's very dependent on the product. If you have a product that's quite profitable, you might not even need investment. And the ideal goal would be to never have investment. But I think if you need apps made and stuff like that properly done, which is going to cost thousands, like 30, 40 grand, I think someone told me, you probably are going to need investment unless you're super profitable from day one. But I think being able to stretch out and really get out as much as you can out of your business before taking on investment is good. And I think that would look good for an investor. Obviously, I'm not an investor, but I think having spoken to some, they like it when an entrepreneur has really got as much as they possibly can out of a business first and pushed it to the absolute breaking point where they either stop here and the business collapses or they take investment on. If you just from day one, if you just like, and if you haven't validated, if you just think, oh, I can't do this without having investment, you're not going to get investment because there's no proof of what you've done. So yeah, really try and cram out as much as you possibly can first, unless it's physically impossible, which I don't think it is. Unless you just really try and smash out as much out of the business first, and then potentially look at getting investment if that's something you need. But do a business plan. Just do a business plan. Write down what you think your costs are going to be in a few months' time. If you think you're going to have a cost of 30 grand because you need an app, fine, get investment. But I think most people here probably, or I don't think anyone really here probably needs investment right now. So
I think that's really important. Like you say, is starting to build out that runway for if you potentially going to investors and understand when your big expenditures might come, and that's when they're really interested. And that's, I imagine, the feedback you've got from them of understanding. I think some of the questions now coming in are more about how you find that work-life balance. And I think you've alluded to already, Miles, it's chaos at the moment with kind of final years of study and going from there. So I think now it's really to delve in how you guys are you enjoying the entrepreneur kind of life, the startup? What are the main challenges, and how do you like drag yourself to always be out of the troughs really, and then do you actually get to enjoy the highs, or is it always thinking on to the next thing? So Sam, you've got a big grin on your face there, so go on, I'll pass that one over to you to start with, especially because you've got a co-founder as well.
Own experience. I never wanted to be a entrepreneur, co-founder of any business, right? So I mean, as long as I remember, when I was a kid, I wanted to pick car design, right? And until actually I've done some internship for car design 10 years ago, and I understood that actually, like, that's not for me. And a friend of mine called and said like he wants to start a tech company in Birmingham. Like that was 7 years ago. I said, sure. Moved to Birmingham and started the web design and development IT consultant. I just, helped them with I became the head of design and development for the actually the coders and programmers. And from there, then I fell in love with it, right? The amount of control you have, the amount of how you can actually set up your life. There's again, how you can build something that was new and then grow it, it becomes your baby, right? So and then I said it to Dimitri a few months back. He's like entrepreneurship, and many people wouldn't agree with me. It's like it's like some sort of a disease or a parasite. It comes in and you cannot get rid of it, right? You just wherever you go back to work and work, you always back of your mind, that you go back and you do your own thing. I start again some sort of a venture back in line, or maybe something on the side as a side gig. But you always having that entrepreneurship craze on the side, and I have to say it's really depends on individual circumstances, right? So for example, let's say these pandemics for me and Dimitri. So this pandemic is span out so maybe a year or two, hopefully not, and we cannot go to market in time, right? But we still have cost. As Mao said, having a business is you have to pay a lot of money, right? This money needs to come from somewhere. And if it's not investment, well, your savings, or someone got to pay for it. And in order to be alive or do something, perhaps again based on the situation, maybe you need to look for a part-time job, maybe a full-time job, and this becomes a side gig until that you can take over again when the time is right. It really depends on your special circumstances and where you are. So it's very, very important to look at the finances, unless you've got a wealthy family or rich dad who can be at the safety net. You got to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. I think this might be with one of the questions there, Miles. Of course, you're in your final year and university is key, as well as here to talk about a business. But how are you finding the balance of academia and your business? And let's see how this goes and make sure that university is still an important thing. That's why we are here first and foremost. But how are you finding that balance, really? Like you said, it was chaotic, but where you find it, are you working 24/7, 365, or are you trying to strike a balance as well with everything else?
Yeah, so I think there's a bit of a stigma attached, isn't there, about this whole sort of entrepreneur, be your own boss, work whenever you want. So not true. Well, not from my experience anyway. Pure hell. I think unless it's hard. But you do have to really manage your time well. And I find I'm a proper overthinker. I am. Like I'm thinking about stuff now. Like my mind's all over the place. But I think writing down stuff's really, really useful. So I always write to-do lists down, which are great. But then with a to-do list, you need to come up with actionable steps with that as well. It's all well and good. I remember I have a big whiteboard in my room. I'm at home at the moment, but I have a big whiteboard in my room, and I used to write down massive lists of to-do lists, like today I'm going to call estate agents and but I wouldn't make it actionable. So I'd wake up in the morning or go to sleep at night, super gassed to wake up the next morning, wake up and then look at it and go, how do I even start that? So I think breaking it down and really thinking about how you can manage and break the business down. So I'm still working out how many different elements. Every day there's new elements of the business that I've not thought about before. But I think if you break down the different steps of your business, to say, let's really make it simple, to have marketing, operations, and then tech. So operations is like all the moving parts, investment, social media, obviously, Insta, getting people to hear about your brand, and then tech, obviously. If you can break it down into those three different ways and sort of stem off that, what needs to be done, it is manageable. But I wouldn't say I'm working 365. I do pretty much work 7 days a week, but most of the time it's because I'm better not say it too loud because my mum's over there. Most of the time it's catching up on lectures. So I try because obviously, and it's great because it's online at the moment, so I can kind of catch up quite easily or put a lecture on mute and then take a call if I need to or whatever. So it's quite beneficial having it online at the moment, which is good. But I think it is very doable to do it. Well, Sam's done it, Dmitrij's done it, I'm doing it somehow. You can manage it, and it is really doable. But you don't want to burn yourself out either. You really need to balance your time well. And if you're into the gym or you're into sport, make sure you do that. And don't. I know you can't go to every social event if you're trying to do your own thing, but don't continually pass up on those things. Do have a break from it as well. and you can have a break. And I think there's quite a, I don't know what the word is. There's quite a negative sort of stigma attached to doing your own thing. Oh, work. When I was starting my own business, I didn't sleep for 7 days and stuff like this. And it's all good saying that, but like it's not a sustainable thing. You really need to think about how you can maintain this. And as soon as you burn out, especially in the early days of your business, as soon as you burn out, your business is going to flop. Like if I wake up one day like tomorrow and don't do any work, I'm going to lose out on potentially loads of estate agents or whatever I'm doing the next day. So I think being able to make sure you can maintain it for a long period of time until you can start bringing in a team is really, really important. And you need to look after yourself. Like you do need to manage your time well. But yeah, it's doable. It's hell. It's chaotic, but you just got to keep, providing you're passionate about the business you're doing as well, which is key. And you're not just doing it for the money. You will be able to continue to do that, and you will be able to maintain that for a long period of time without any actual rewards. Saw a quote the other day. It was impatient with action but patient with results, and I think that's really key. You got to always think about the end vision and keep every day you wake up think about the long-term goal. And it might be crap one day, but you got to think about long-term what the vision is, and make sure you don't burn yourself out between now and then. Have a balance.
That's really interesting to see that long-term vision, and that you are kind of making and fighting for that balance always. And I'm sure your lecturers would love to hear that you're on the phone as well during them. So keeping it discreet, I like it. But Sam, what about yourself, and as well, Dimitri? How are you finding it as well? This currently, I imagine you've had some frustrating days, especially in the early days of COVID, where you thought, you know what, desk rentals, who's going to want these? How quickly were you able to pick yourself up? Or was there even that thought at the beginning of this pandemic?
Well, for me, I have to say, like, before desks, I was like, have founded multiple companies, but like until 2 months ago, I was working more full time on another startup that I was working on, and on a part-time basis with Dimitri on desks. Well, just going back to what Miles said previously in terms of like the breakdown and knowing where is that the line for the other business I was working on. It was like really high tech, deep tech, fully on artificial intelligence, and I had to like work 7 days, quite a lot, and I had the desk on the side as well, so I couldn't really like manage everything, and working on the whole dynamic within the team with the others, with like this the CTO here there. It was like it was a bit hectic, and I broke down. I couldn't really handle it. It was just too much. And for that reason, I said like, okay, so we came up with a solution with my co-founders of that company, and I sold my shares, and I said, yeah, okay, so this time I'm gonna be fully focused, on one venture, and spanning out to multiple ventures, because I learned it from my mentor who had like multiple companies. And I said, okay, so if you put your eggs into multiple baskets. I said like, no, that's not possible anymore, right? Unless you've got a massive team behind you, a lot of money to handle that, right? So I mean, which I didn't. So I learned from that mistake, and now just like again in terms of life work balance. So now full time working on desks until that we essentially come to a position that said like, okay, so we cannot really handle this given the current scenario. But going back to your question, started and we're very like questioning the whole venture. We actually didn't. Again, Dimitri can come back on this, and I said like, okay,
Absolutely,
yeah, this gives us an opportunity. Actually, like we didn't see the the empty side of the glass, right? We seen that like the full part, and we said like, okay, so this is actually a good opportunity, because for us, for the providers now, there are again, if I need to say like they're kind of like desperate for money, because nobody's using their desk, right? So perhaps is easier for us to go and gain the market and build up this partnership with the providers, while before it was harder, because they were like, why should I come? I already have like many people using our spaces, right? So essentially we didn't say like this actually like it was good for us in the pandemic. That would have been devastating, right? I mean, if you wanted to go through during right before the pandemic, let's say like in March, we launched and then boom, everything else, right? That would be like out of like goodbye desks. But essentially the timing is right, so we are coming like building the platform. Everything is going in the right direction until that the whole pandemic is sorted, so we can go to market.
So yeah, we try to look at it as a blessing in disguise, sort of, which gives a bit more time.
Definitely, and do you want to go any more into that blessing in disguise, Dimitri? Is how have you found the balance then? Like Sam said then about him, but what about yourself? Were you really excited to get more involved and get stuff done when you saw and realized the size of the opportunity?
Yes, absolutely. Because yeah, initially I was sort of skeptical about the idea because I didn't counter the decision myself. The more we researched into, the more we learned, and I realized there will be a great opportunity for both of us to get new skills. And to after a few negative experiences of working for someone else, yeah, I was really hyped sort of to start a business of my own. And yeah, as Miles said before, it can be quite a hell, but it's really rewarding when you actually get something done.
That brings us really interesting to that question. What signs signal? Of course, right now you guys are on an up and things are hopefully going like well. But that skepticism that you had, Dimitri, was there ever a time you're like, what was the sign that said, I'm going to commit and this is something I can see going forward, and it wasn't the sign of, oh no, this won't work? What were the kind of the indicators for you that you thought, I'm going to back this, and Desks is something I really want to commit more time to?
When they realized that, I mean, I guess it was partially Sam's persuasion skills. Yeah, but yeah, no, but it's like when we saw the size of the opportunity, yeah, it kind of, I mean, we realized that maybe potentially, like gives a chance, like to make a difference, to make a platform that would make someone's life easier, basically solve an issue. Because yeah, I think like if you want to start your like not just tech business, any kind of business, as Sam said before, you need to like based on the issue that you would like yourself to see be solved,
Thank you for that comment. But Sam, well, clearly you're getting praise here as the salesman. So if anything ever goes wrong, Miles, and you need someone for persuasion, you've got someone here, and Dimitri's got you back on tech as well. But really kind of build it.
You got our numbers, you can call whenever you want.
Absolutely.
But just going from that and kind of going is, Miles, like this is a big undertaking for you in your final year. You're saying it's hell. Sounds like you are striking a nice balance, but going back to those days when it is a bit low, you are a bit low. What is your go-to thing? Is there an inspirational quote you'll turn to, or do you look at reading? What is it the kind of thing that switches? Like I've decided to back this. This is what were your signs, and then also how do you make sure you're always picking yourself up, really?
Yeah, and it is quite hard, obviously, doing it by myself. I think even if you have a few people like Sam and Dmitrijs do it, it's still difficult when it's two of you. If you're both down, it's going to be rough. So I think and leading back to the whole thing about having a passion and not just doing it for money. I'll be completely open here. I still kind of am quite a materialistic person. I'm quite into nice cars and whatever. Not got any yet, but that's always sort of an end goal. And I've always had the dream of having an Audi R8. Which is like a really, really nice sports car. And that's sort of always been it's not what I wake up thinking about every morning going, oh yeah, right, let's get an Audi R8. But it's always like a materialistic thing in the back of my mind. But I think having a proper passion and enjoying what you're doing, whatever industry you're in, and not just chasing money, which I'll be honest, I fell into the trap of doing that before. Yeah, because the money will just eventually, even when you start making loads of money, you'll eventually just get desensitized to it and you'll lose your passion. You really got to be passionate about what you're doing. But it is really, really difficult doing your own thing. Thankfully, my girlfriend, who obviously spend a lot of time with, not so much at the moment due to COVID, but previously, she's got her own business as well. So I think both having our own businesses is great. And we kind of understand if we're up till like 2 a.m. doing emails or whatever, we both kind of get it. And I think surrounding yourself with the right kind of people as well. And I think BC is great for that, and Aston Enterprise and stuff like that. Little plug there. I think it's I think it's great to have people, like-minded people around you, that support your ideas. And often, obviously in the BC office, don't go there that much at the moment. Often see Sam and Dmitrijs in there, and just having a quick chat with them, finding out what they're doing, and sharing with other people what you're up to, and then asking each other questions is great. But I think, yeah, really trying to surround yourself, and LinkedIn is great, but surrounding yourself with people who are either doing their own businesses or have done them before is a really good idea. But it is hard. You will have days where you're going to be low. No one will tell you about that. You only see on Instagram and stuff these entrepreneurs who have got Lamborghinis and stuff now, but you haven't seen the years of work that's gone into doing that. And I think don't get yourself too disillusioned to that idea that it's going to be some sort of get rich quick thing. Tech businesses especially take a long time. I'm nowhere near to making a load of money from it. I'm not making any money from it right now. But yeah, you've got to be really passionate about it and hold out. But I think, yeah, understanding when your idea is not going to work. I think providing you validate it a lot first, and don't spend, especially with the whole landing page kind of thing, which what I talked about briefly. I think providing you get enough validation first, you shouldn't find yourself in that position unless you run out of money or something like that, and you do realize the product's not good. But you pivot and you find out, providing you're in a space you're passionate about, there will be loads of different variants. With what I'm doing, there's so many different ways I could go. Same with what Sam and Dmitrijs doing. They could go different ways. You just got to be passionate about it, and you'll get through it. And just make sure, yeah, you validated the idea, and you're not going to find yourself 10 months down the line or a year down the line where you've got a product and no one's using it. If that's happening, then yeah, probably call it a day. But that shouldn't happen if you validate it and you're passionate about it. You should be able to just, and have a balance as well. You should be able to just push through.
Brilliant. I think that's a really nice point there. And what I'm going to really focus on now is, if there are any questions that people want, is we've gone on a real journey with Sam, Dmitry, and Miles here about how they've validated the kind of technical abilities that can take you somewhere. And then also Miles very much stating, I think we've decided Miles has put his flag in the ground there, that he is not someone that likes tech or knows that, but also backs himself to understand and pivot and make a business from that. I think that was a really nice point there, surrounding you with the people that will support you and understand the journeys you're going on, and kind of understand the deep, dark places you'll go to really build from there. And it sounds like you guys are just on the up for both of you, for Desks and oh my God, I can't remember it. Direct Solutions? No,
Directly sourced. Maybe we need to change
Directly sourced. I knew it was the S. It's the DS that threw me. I am sorry, Miles. But I think that's really exciting to hear. So now I'm going to throw it out to anyone that's still on the call. If you want to ask any questions, please come off mute and ask them directly to either Miles, Sam, or Dmitry. And yeah, we can just throw for the final few minutes of this discussion. Please feel free to ask any more questions. And this is where everyone decides to be silent and not ask anything after asking questions all.
As is tradition.
So, okay, so let's start with how long did it take you to develop the idea? Weeks, months? So I think, Miles, we're going to focus on that. I think, Sam, you said kind of where you've gone. So, Miles, how long did it take you to develop the idea?
Yeah, so I went to this sort of property investment webinar kind of thing, ended up being a complete get-rich-quick thing. However, there was a lot of problems I identified and have formed a business from that. So all in all, I would say so I've had to think about this the other day, actually, and I was kind of thinking how long I've actually been going at this for now. Properly since about January. The idea came about probably summer last year. However, yeah, January properly. What was the question? Sorry, how long have I been going at it?
Yeah, so it's about 18 months since you first propped and went into it.
Yeah,
and I'm just interested in diving into that. So you went to that, someone saying about the property investment course, but the kind of webinar session you went to, how did you tweak and went, that's a problem? Like, had you been to sessions previously? Had you gone to BC or Aston Enterprise, or was it other things you're aware of? But you're like, you were looking and heard problems rather than just they washed over you.
Yeah, so I think speaking to people, so I went to this webinar, and there they really encouraged, not a webinar, sorry, like a networking event, and everyone, to COVID related now, everyone there was kind of talking to each other and asking questions, and it was there I sort of realized, like, is this really the most efficient way of doing it? And especially with stuff like COVID now, so much stuff's moving online, and it was there the idea sort of came about. And then, yeah, obviously validated it and stuff like that. God, I'm losing my train of thought here. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long time doing it. But yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I'm just rambling, to be honest with you.
No. I know it was interesting. How did you identify those problems? Is it just
Hmm.
efficiency, or
Oh,
this
right,
is very time consuming, and go from there?
yeah. So it's. I think obviously very early on I developed that initial product on Wix, like I said, and I think having that gave me the ideas of more problems. But it is really from speaking to people. Every day I'm speaking to probably 10 people, either estate agents or investors, and every single day there's new problems that come about, which I need to find a way of it. Well, if there's enough people experiencing that problem, incorporating it in. And I think especially with tech where it costs so much money and is a really time intensive thing, and often you're not going to see results, especially like money results, for a long time. You need to really make sure the problem is big enough for people to really care about and really want to get involved. And that's something I've been dealing with, especially when I first started. It was initially only aimed at sourcing agents, which is a very niche group of people, a niche estate agent basically for investors. That's who I only thought the platform was going to be for. And within a couple of weeks of realizing that, I realized there was estate agents that would use it, developers, private sellers, landlords who are getting old, who are looking to sell their properties. And you'll realize if you're in quite a broad space like I am in investments, and Sam basically kind of property, isn't it? Commercial kind of thing. There's going to be so many more problems you probably haven't thought about. And it might end up being a case that your business completely changes and you pivot into doing something completely different. Because ours initially was going to be like LinkedIn, but for property investors. There was going to be no search portal for investment, none of that. It was going to be LinkedIn, but specifically for property people. But then straight away off the bat, I realised it was taking investors so long to find deals on Rightmove and calling estate agents, then them going, oh, it's sold, da 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 da. So I realised quite early on that a search portal kind of thing. So we kind of pivoted into more of a search portal as opposed to a networking platform.
That's a really interesting piece there around how you saw the opportunities, but then fully accepting that with the broad market you had to pivot from there. And I think just passing over to Sam now is kind of with that, and Desks. I know when we spoke, you've going through a few iterations as a few other competitors. How are you treading that path as well? And like, how long have you been thinking about Desk? You know, you introed it and said when you're in London and everything, but surely from that initial thought, there's been a few side steps and a few pivots.
Yes.
Gone for you.
Well, the idea started again as over almost 2 years ago, right? And but I didn't have the opportunity nor the time to dedicate any sort of resources to research to understand that this how to tackle this until that opportunity arrived. As one of the modules required us, me and Dmitry, to come up with this idea and build the first basic MVP, right? So just visually how it looks like, pitch it to a panel in Aston, right? And we understood actually we've got something that we're working on, right? So that was November last year. So since November, right? So we've been working on part-time here and there, going forward until recently, until June. Have we got like kind of like a full, almost a 2-year journey, given where we are. And I would say like it would forward as well. But given like no business is static, right? So no business is just saying like, no, this is what we want to do and they do it tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
We live in a complex world, and whoever your competitors or the market, your workforce, all of these situations, they provide a different dynamic into your business that you need to re-strategize like every day or every month, depending on where you are, right? So you need to be, especially in the tech scene, right? So like Miles and Desks, like we both need to be really reactive and both active in the market. Because if, for example, let's say they comes and take over your market, what is like this happens or that happens, we need to have a strategy for all of this, right? So if, for example, such a thing happens, so what is our strategy to tackle this, right? So I mean, what we will do, right? So I mean, given where we started and based on the resources we had, we couldn't basically build up the application full on with all features right at the start, right? That vision didn't go anywhere, right? So we have a set of vision and mission. Our vision actually is like to provide for anyone to look for affordable space anywhere, anytime they're looking for it, right? So it's a productivity company. So how we achieve that, again, depending on our situation, right? So for example, maybe today we can achieve these via a simple website, or with a more more features on the website, build up on top of it, have an application here, there, or provide the hardware, who knows, in the future. But our vision remains the same, as of providing a platform, providing a service to customers who can actually enjoy it for a seamless experience of making a pain point easier for people. And if we can achieve that by any means, we win. And I mean, Miles said it right. It just really depends on the situation of where you are, and how can you attack this problem from different angles.
That's really interesting to see that you're always adapting and making sure that you are putting the customer, validating it, moving, making sure you're adapting and being flexible. And those lean approaches you spoke about both earlier, of kind of make sure you get the most out of your skill set. And it sounds like I've said before that you two are really on that journey of, and just on an upward trajectory right now. So I think the thing that I really want to finish and wrap up with now, and we'll keep it a bit brief, I'm just going to ask you, can you tell us the highlight? So you've kind of 18 months, 2 years. What has been like your highlight moment that you're like, you know what, that is something I can look back and I still smile now about it. I hope to God there is at least one. Otherwise, this isn't an uplifting way to finish this chat. So both pondering, and Dmitry, please jump in as well if there is one for you. Miles, I'll come to you first. Yeah, is there a moment you're like, was it your aha moment, like this is what I'm going to do, or just like getting published, or what is it?
Yeah,
that, you know what, that I'm really proud of and a highlight for me.
Yeah, so there's actually a few things. Obviously, one of the most recent things is sort of getting some press done and having some press interest from some quite big publications within the space I'm in. That was really cool. Been on some podcasts now as well, which was really cool. I think one of the best things for me is sort of a few months ago having this vision of a platform for investors, and then actually seeing it come to life. And then we're now at a point where we got people interacting on the site and doing what I wanted to do, basically. Granted, I'm not making any money yet, but it's really cool just to see that sort of product from an idea in your head come to life, and actually seeing people interact and getting emails and feedback every single day of people like, oh, this is really, really good. Thank you for finally making this, and stuff like that. And really getting that sort of feedback from people that they do like the product. Obviously, there's every day I get one person that probably says like, this is rubbish, like this is so rubbish. But then don't get too attached to that, and also don't get too attached to the positive stuff as well, or she'll end up getting a bit desensitized to that. But there's been loads of highlights. But yeah, one of the main things for me is actually having the product come to life and having users. I know Sam and Dmitrijs aren't quite there yet, but Sam's experienced it before with other businesses he's had. It's such a sick feeling having actually people like using your product, because it's not like obviously in other industries non-tech related where you have, I don't know, you're selling water bottles and you never actually you do see people obviously posting photos, but until you see someone walking down the street using your water bottle, you get that feeling as soon as people start using your product as on a tech business side of things. And that's really, really cool. That keeps you boosted and moving forward as well. You want to get more people using it. So that was a really cool experience, sort of actually seeing it come together and come to life.
Okay, brilliant. And Sam, so that there we've got the users using the product, getting that feedback, be it positive or negative. That's really like inspiring moment. And then Sam, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely waiting for the day to see people utilizing the platform. Yeah, that would be a fantastic day to see. Well, yeah, certainly currently at the current stage, I think is for me at least. I mean, Dmitry can come in as well. Was we as any business, we come across many problems, but as big of a problem we face. I mean, we faced multiple problems that took us months to figure out how to solve, right? And some hurdles to see how we can go around. Some problems we didn't know what to do with. And when you solve it, you're like you feel like a sense of relief, and you say you've done it. We finally got over it. We're thinking creatively, going innovatively, to see how we can actually fix this massive Goliath, and go over it. Right. So I think that's the feeling of fixing a big issue at the current stage where we are. Is a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially if you're doing the prototype yourself, using WordPress or another platform. Yeah, you stumble upon these problems very often. I'm going to be completely honest. And some problems can take weeks, hopefully not months. And yeah, once you overcome them, yeah, it's one of one of the best feelings ever, to be honest. Yeah, and also, I mean, for me was in the beginning of our journey, we got to the final of the Aston Enterprise competition and got a grant from Santander and got accepted in business in BC. And yeah, that's also a really great feeling, to basically get feedback, meet new people, and actually, like feel like you're achieving something and going forward with your journey.
I couldn't think of a better way to finish this session. Thank you for that sign off. It makes my job a lot easier there, Dmitry. Fantastic. And keep on solving those problems, keep on seeing it. And I'm excited to see where you guys go. Hopefully, might be using Desk. I'll get saving and raid the piggy bank to make sure I can potentially get onto doing some property investment as well, Miles. Once again, that'll bring us to the end. Thank you to our speakers and our guests, and good luck. And look forward to seeing you at our future events as well. We have How to Make a Podcast next Tuesday. And yeah, you can find this recording on YouTube as well. So we'll see you later. And yeah, Miles, Sam, and Dmitry, thanks so much and have a lovely evening.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Have a good one, guys.
See you later.
See you
Bye-bye.
guys.